If you've ever driven through the night alone, you already know that feeling. That stretch of highway where there's nothing around you but darkness and white lines, and your mind starts doing things you wish it wouldn't. I've driven that road more times than I can count. I'm a trucker, have been for 11 years. I've seen a lot of strange things out there. But nothing, and I mean nothing, comes close to what happened to me on Eminis 40 in New Mexico, somewhere between Albuquerque and Amarillo, on a Tuesday night in late October. I was running a standard load. Nothing special, furniture for a warehouse in Texas. I'd done that exact route maybe 30 times before. I knew every rest stop, every overpass, every long, empty mile of it. I wasn't worried about anything except staying awake and making good time. I had my coffee, my radio, and about 400 miles of highway in front of me. Around 11 at night, I stopped at a small truck stop just past a town I won't bother naming. It barely qualified as a truck stop, 2 pumps, a tiny diner attached, a few parking spots around back. I topped off my tank, grabbed a sandwich from inside, and used the restroom. The guy behind the counter was maybe 60, barely looked up at me. Only other customer in the place was a younger guy sitting in a corner booth, maybe mid-20s, wearing a gray hoodie, just staring down at his phone. I didn't think anything of either of them. Paid, walked out, climbed back into my cab. That's when I noticed my driver's side door hadn't latched right. I pulled it shut again, heard it click, and thought nothing of it. I pulled out of the lot and got back on the interstate. About 20 miles down the road, somewhere around midnight, I started hearing something. A sound from behind me, from the sleeper compartment. At first I told myself it was the load shifting. Furniture can do that, settle and creak. But this was different. I turned the radio down. There it was, slow, steady, like someone trying very hard to be quiet. I want you to understand what it feels like to be in a truck cab at midnight with that realization forming in your mind. You can't pull over instantly. There's no shoulder on that stretch, and you're in a 70,000-pound vehicle doing 65 miles an hour. You have to stay calm when every single part of you is screaming. I reached over slowly without turning around and grabbed the flashlight I keep between the seats. I didn't flip it on yet. I just held it. I kept driving. I kept listening. The breathing had stopped. Either I'd imagined it, or whatever was back there knew I'd noticed. I started running through it logically. My sleeper curtain was pulled shut. Someone could be behind it. The door that hadn't latched right, I thought I'd fixed it, but what if someone slipped in while I was inside the diner? The lot was dark. I hadn't been watching the truck the whole time. Maybe 10, 12 minutes total that I was inside. I got on my CB radio, kept my voice low and even, and called out to any other truckers on the channel. Got a response from a guy about 15 miles ahead of me, went by hatchback, veteran driver. I told him I thought I had a stowaway. He came back immediately. Told me to stay calm, keep driving, and get to the next lit area. There was a way station about 8 miles ahead that would be staffed. 8 miles. I drove every one of them with that flashlight in my right hand, and my eyes flicking to that curtain in the mirror. I was about a mile from the way station when the curtain moved. Not the whole thing, just the bottom corner, just enough. I hit the air horn, one long blast. I don't know why, instinct maybe, trying to signal hatchback or just doing something, anything, because my brain needed to act. I pushed my speed up to 70, then 75. The way station came up fast. I pulled in, lights on, and before the truck even fully stopped, I was out of the cab and standing in the floodlights with my flashlight on and the door open behind me. 2 DOT officers came out. I told them what I thought was happening. One of them had their hand near their hip the whole time. The other one climbed up into my cab with a flashlight of his own. What they found in my sleeper compartment was a man curled up in the corner behind my duffel bag with a folding knife in his jacket pocket. 24 years old. He'd been hiding back there for at least 40 miles. He didn't fight when they pulled him out. Just sat down on the asphalt and put his hands up like he'd already made his decision about how this was going to end. I never got a full explanation for what he intended. The police came, took him into custody. I gave my statement in that way station parking lot at 12:45 in the morning with my hands shaking so bad I could barely hold the pen. The officer told me it wasn't the first time something like that had happened on that corridor. Said transient individuals sometimes target trucks at remote stops, looking for a ride or an opportunity. He left it at that. I stood next to my truck for a long time after everyone cleared out. Hatchback had pulled in behind me at some point during all of it. I hadn't even noticed. He walked over, handed me a cup of coffee from his thermos, and didn't say a word. Just stood there with me for a while. That meant more than I can explain. I still run that route. I still stop at truck stops in the middle of the night because that's the job and I'm not going to let one night take that from me. But things are different now. I do a full walk around of my cab before I get back in every single time. I check the sleeper. I check the locks. I don't care if someone thinks I look paranoid. I don't care if it takes an extra 5 minutes. I've driven over 2 million miles in this country. I know every rest stop, every way station, every stretch of highway that feels wrong at 3 in the morning. I've seen things that don't make the news, and I've learned that the most dangerous thing out there isn't the weather, isn't the road, isn't even the other drivers. It's the ones who are already waiting for you. I was running a solo haul from Memphis to Albuquerque. Dry freight, standard load, nothing unusual. I'd done that route many times before. Knew it the way you know a scar on your own hand. I left Memphis just after 9 at night. Figured I'd push through to Oklahoma City, grab a few hours, then finish the run by morning. The first 6 hours were clean. Good road, light traffic, cool air coming through the vents. I had a podcast going, half a thermos of coffee, felt sharp. Everything was normal. Around 2 in the morning, somewhere in the middle of Oklahoma, I started smelling something. Faint at first, like something electrical. Not burning exactly, more like heat on metal. I turned down the podcast and listened. The engine sounded fine. No warning lights. I figured maybe it was road debris or something kicking up from underneath. But it didn't go away. By mile marker 141, it had gotten stronger. That's when I noticed the temperature gauge was sitting just slightly above where it usually runs. Not in the red, not even close, but enough that I noticed. I've been driving long enough to know you don't ignore small things. Small things are how big things start. I pulled into a rest area off the exit. Nothing there except a couple of vending machines under a yellow light, and one other truck parked far off on the opposite end of the lot. I killed the engine and climbed down to walk the exterior and check underneath. That's when I heard it. Not from outside, from inside, from my own cab. A sound like something shifting, a low, slow movement, like weight redistributing. I stood still on the asphalt and told myself it was the cargo settling. Dry freight moves sometimes, especially if the road's been rough. That's what I told myself. I walked to the back of the trailer, checked the seal on the doors. Intact. Lock was fine, nothing looked disturbed. I stood there in the dark for a long moment, listening. Nothing. I climbed back in, started her up, checked the temp gauge. It had come down slightly. I figured whatever it was had worked itself out. Probably a belt running warm. I pulled back onto the highway and kept going. 40 minutes later, I stopped for fuel at a 24-hour truck stop just past the state line into Texas. The place was quiet. One attendant inside, 2 other rigs at the pumps. I topped off the tank, went inside, grabbed something to eat. When I came back out, I noticed something. My driver's side door was slightly open. Not wide, maybe 2 inches, but I always close it completely. Always. It's automatic, like checking your mirrors. You close the door, you hear the click, you move on. I stood there for a second, running it back in my head. I was certain I had closed it. I walked up slowly, pulled it open the rest of the way, looked inside. Nothing looked wrong. My bag was where I left it, my thermos, my logbook, everything where it should be. I checked the sleeper behind the seats. Empty. I stood there with one foot on the step and told myself I was tired, that I'd left it cracked without realizing. I got back in and kept driving, but I couldn't get comfortable after that. I cracked the window and drove. Around 5 in the morning, maybe an hour outside Amarillo, I needed to pull over. My eyes were starting to blur at the edges. I found a wide shoulder with good visibility and put the hazards on. I climbed into the sleeper to close my eyes for 20 minutes. That's when I found it. Tucked under the bunk mattress, pushed in but not all the way. A bag, a dark green duffel bag, small, not mine. I didn't touch it immediately. I just sat there on the edge of the bunk staring at it. I grabbed my flashlight and looked without touching. The zipper was slightly open. Inside I could see clothing, a phone, screen cracked, and a folded paper that looked like it might be a document of some kind. I didn't open the bag. I didn't unfold the paper. I called 911. 2 state troopers arrived in under 15 minutes. They took the bag, put on gloves, went through it carefully. I stood outside in the early morning cold while they worked. One of them came over after about 10 minutes and asked me a series of questions. When had I last checked the sleeper? Had I left the truck unattended at any point? Had I noticed anything unusual at any of the stops? I answered everything honestly. What they told me next is what I keep coming back to. They said the bag had personal items in it, clothing for several days, a prepaid phone, a specific kind of documentation they wouldn't fully describe to me, and they said that based on the location of my stops, someone had accessed my truck somewhere between the rest area in Oklahoma and the fuel stop in Texas. They never found who it was. The truck stop had cameras, but the footage from that angle was corrupted, or missing. The troopers were careful about the words they used, but I could read between them. Whatever they suspected, they weren't ready to say it out loud to me. I asked one of them just before they let me go whether I'd been in danger. He didn't answer right away. He looked at me for a moment, then he looked away, out at the highway. He said he thought I was very lucky to have stopped when I did. I finished that haul. I had to, but I pulled over 3 more times on the way to Albuquerque, not because I was tired. Just to check. I drove long haul for 11 years, Midwest routes mostly, Illinois to Kansas, Kansas to Colorado, sometimes all the way out to Utah and back. I'd covered more night miles than I could count. I knew how to handle the dark, handle the loneliness, handle the weird headspace that comes at hour 9 or 10 when your brain starts playing tricks. I thought I'd seen everything the road could throw at me. This happened about 3 years ago on a stretch of -70 in western Kansas. If you've ever driven that section, you know exactly what I mean when I say there is nothing out there. No towns, no lights, no overpasses. Just flat land, dry air, and a highway that looks the same every single mile. It's the kind of place where if something goes wrong, really wrong, you are on your own. I was carrying a standard freight load, nothing unusual, scheduled to hit a distribution center outside of Salina by 4 in the morning. It was around 1 a.m. when I noticed something was off. Not with me, with another truck. I first spotted it about 2 miles back, a semi running without its trailer lights fully functioning. One of the rear lights was flickering. I noticed because out there, when it's completely black in every direction, you notice everything. The flickering light was almost hypnotic at that distance, just a faint pulse in the dark behind me. I didn't think much of it. Electrical issues happen. I kept my speed steady and figured he'd either pull over to check it or just keep rolling. Plenty of guys push through minor stuff when they're on a tight schedule. But then he got closer. Not in a merging kind of way, More like he'd sped up specifically to close the distance between us. I watched my mirrors. He went from 2 miles back to maybe half a mile back in just a few minutes. Out on flat, open highway like that, you can see a long way. He was moving fast. I told myself it was nothing. Guys running late, pushing his speed happens all the time. Then he started flashing his high beams. That's a trucker signal. Could mean a lot of things. Could mean I had something loose on my trailer. Could mean he was trying to pass and wanted me to make room. I checked my gauges, everything was fine on my end. I eased toward the right side of the lane, to give him room to pass, if that's what he wanted. He didn't pass, he stayed right behind me, and the flashing kept going. At this point I got on the CB radio. I called out to him, gave my approximate mile marker, asked if there was an issue. Static. Nothing. I tried again. Still nothing. Either his radio was off or he wasn't interested in talking. Now I was paying attention in a different way. I picked up my speed, not dramatically, but enough. He matched it exactly. I slowed back down to just under the limit. He slowed too. Every adjustment I made, he made the same one. He wasn't trying to pass me. He was pacing me. I've had aggressive drivers behind me before. Guys having a bad night, taking it out on whoever's in front of them. Usually they get bored and move on. This felt different. This felt deliberate. I grabbed my phone, thought about calling dispatch, but out there the signal comes and goes. I had 2 bars. I held onto it and kept driving, watching my mirrors more than I watched the road ahead. About 20 minutes into this, something changed. He flashed his high beams 3 times in a row, and then he pulled into the left lane. Not to pass. He just drove up alongside me, matching my exact speed, and stayed there. I kept my eyes forward. I did not look over. I don't know exactly why, but something told me not to look. He stayed alongside me for close to 2 minutes. At 70 miles an hour in the middle of the night, that's a long time. I could see the glow of his cab lights in my peripheral vision. I focused on the white dashes on the road in front of me, and I just drove. Then he dropped back behind me again. And then he hit his horn, one long blast, and went dark. All his lights cut off at once. Running lights, headlights, everything. A truck that size just disappeared into the black behind me. My hands tightened on the wheel and I just drove. I drove hard. I got on my phone and got through to dispatch on the second try. Told them what was happening, gave them my location, told them I had a truck behind me behaving erratically. They said they'd call it in to highway patrol. I didn't see the truck again after that. No lights behind me, nothing. He was just gone. Highway patrol caught up to me about 14 miles down the road. I pulled over and talked to the officer. He took down everything I described, the truck, the lights, the behavior, the approximate time and location. He didn't say much at first, just wrote things down. Then he looked up and told me that stretch of -70 had seen 3 cargo theft incidents in the past 8 months. Coordinated. Someone in a truck would tail a target, study their habits, relay information to people waiting further up the route. They'd never caught anyone connected to it. He asked me if I'd noticed anything about the truck other than the lights. I told him I hadn't looked. He said that was probably smart. I finished the route, delivered the load, drove back east the next day. But I haven't driven that stretch of -70 at night since. If any of these stories got under your skin, drop a comment below. I want to know which one scares you the most. I read every single one. If you're new here, subscribe right now so you won't miss the next stories. Hit that like button. Stay safe out there. I'll see you in the next one.